Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to unpack a situation that honestly catches so many people totally off guard. We're talking about exactly why Canadians who packed up and left the country years ago, maybe a year, maybe 5, or even a decade ago, are still writing massive tax checks to the CRA every single spring. I mean, just picture this for a second. You've completely relocated. You've been living abroad for years, settling into a new routine in a brand new country. But then tax season rolls around, and you're still paying top-tier G7 taxes for Canadian infrastructure, programs, and healthcare that you literally cannot use. On paper, it sounds completely crazy, right? But as we'll see, this happens all the time. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll break down the expat tax trap. Second, we'll uncover the hidden costs of staying. Third, we'll look at why expats keep paying. And finally, how to break residency. All right, let's get into section 1, the expat tax trap. The whole trap really boils down to this tricky little classification known as being a factual resident. Basically, if you leave Canada but you keep your residential ties there, the CRA still looks at you as a resident for tax purposes. And what does that actually mean? It means you have to report your worldwide income for the entire year, and you're stuck paying full federal and provincial taxes on it. You're essentially paying some of the highest tax rates in the developed world on money you made somewhere else, just as if you never even boarded the plane. Okay, moving on to section 2, hidden costs of staying. When you actually break down where all those federal tax dollars are going, the pain point for expats becomes pretty glaring. Roughly 1 out of every 6 of your tax dollars is funding elderly benefits, like old age security. And another massive chunk, we're talking about $55 billion, goes directly to the Canada Health Transfer to fund provincial healthcare. Then you've got defense, federal infrastructure, and paying down the national debt. These are all incredibly important programs, sure, but you are completely absent from them. You aren't driving on those roads, you aren't walking into those hospitals, and you're essentially just paying for a system you're physically locked out of. And speaking of hospitals, here is the absolute most brutal disconnect. You're diligently paying full provincial taxes on your worldwide income every single year, but because you actually live abroad, there's a very good chance you've lost your active health coverage without even realizing it. You see, provincial healthcare systems have super strict physical presence requirements. To keep your coverage active in British Columbia, for instance, you have to physically be in the province for 6 months out of the year. In Alberta, it's 183 days within a 12-month period. So think about that. You are completely locked out of the exact system you're heavily funding with your tax dollars, all while missing out on the benefits of the lower tax jurisdiction where you actually live. And oh man, if you're getting close to retirement, this hidden cost gets even worse thanks to something called the OAS recovery tax. Starting in 2026, this tax is going to eat 15 cents of every single dollar of income you make over roughly $95,000. Now, if you formally became a non-resident in a treaty country, that treaty often limits or even entirely wipes out this recovery tax. But by staying a factual resident, you are still completely on the hook for it. Let's dive right into section 3, why expats keep paying. So why on earth do people voluntarily leak their wealth like this? Well, it usually comes down to 5 common excuses. People are hedging their bets, they feel totally overwhelmed by the rules, they're terrified of exit taxes, they haven't found a forever home yet, or they just think they don't earn enough to bother. By leading on these excuses, so many expats just default to the absolute most expensive path of least resistance. The most common trap by far is the emotional one, keeping your Canadian residency just in case you decide to return. You know, you don't want to burn any bridges, but what actually happens? You build a life. Your kids go to school, you find your favorite local coffee shop, you build a community. That temporary move quietly becomes permanent. And 5 to 7 years later, expats are full of regret, telling their accountants they wish they had just broken tax residency sooner to save all that money. Then there is the big hurdle that scares everyone, deemed disposition. It's also known as the departure tax. This is a rule where the CRA treats all your assets as if you sold them on the exact day you leave Canada, which triggers taxes on your unrealized capital gains. People take one look at this, absolutely freeze out of fear of getting hit with a massive upfront tax bill, and decide to just do nothing. But here's the thing. Delaying this process backfires incredibly hard. Because your portfolio or your business keeps growing while you wait, 3 things are happening at the exact same time. The eventual deemed disposition bill is getting larger, you are continuing to pay full Canadian taxes on your worldwide income, and you're staying locked out of the tax benefits of your new country. You're literally just prepaying that eventual tax bill plus interest in the form of unnecessary ongoing Canadian taxes. Now, to be perfectly impartial, there is one notable exception to all this. If you are an early-stage digital nomad making a modest income, say around $30,000 to $50,000, and you're constantly bouncing between super low-cost countries, the math might not actually make sense for you just yet. Breaking residency involves a lot of forms, a lot of friction, and usually professional fees. In that specific scenario, the cost of breaking ties might outweigh your immediate tax savings. All right, bringing us to Section 4, how to break residency. If you are tired of paying full price for a country you don't even live in, here is how you make a clean exit. It really comes down to two crucial steps, and the sequencing here is absolutely everything. First, you have to sever your primary residential ties, meaning you deal with your home and ensure your spouse and dependents are with you. Second, you have to establish tax residencies somewhere else. If you do these out of order or you sever ties before having a new tax base, you're asking for massive financial headaches.
And this is a super important point. You cannot just sever ties in a vacuum. You have to establish a tax base somewhere else. Claiming to be a tax resident of nowhere is a massive red flag for the CRA. It basically gives them an open invitation to challenge your non-resident status and demand back taxes for all the years you weren't paying taxes anywhere else.
Beyond those primary ties, you're also going to need to manage your secondary ties. We're talking about things like your driver's license, your provincial health card, Canadian bank accounts, and investment accounts like your TFSA or RRSP. Some of these can move with you, some get taxed differently, and some need to be restructured entirely before you go. The exact rules depend on where you're moving, but it's an absolutely solvable problem. It's definitely not a reason to freeze up. And you know, this really highlights the beauty of the Canadian system compared to a place like the US. Down in the States, you literally have to renounce your citizenship to stop paying their taxes while you live abroad. But Canada, breaking tax residency is not a one-way door. You don't have to give up your passport at all. You can break your tax residency, enjoy the massive savings, and if you ever decide you want to move back, you can easily reestablish your Canadian residency the very next year. I really love this quote from the source material because it just perfectly captures the whole philosophy of this explainer. It's not leave forever. It's stop paying for a status you're not using. You aren't making some irrevocable, permanent decision to abandon your homeland. You're literally just turning off a really expensive subscription that you're not even using. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on regarding your own situation, or maybe a friend living abroad. Why keep hedging your bets and funding the past when you could take action, formalize your status, and start investing those massive tax savings into your own future?